Good morning, everybody. My name is Thomas Hare. I'm the Chief Content Officer of the Performance Driven Marketing Institute. I want to say welcome to PDMI East 2023. We're really glad to have all of you here. We have to thank our hosts at the Eden Rock. They've been great so far, and we couldn't put the show on without them. We definitely could not put the show on without our team. Obviously, my partner, our CEO, John Yarrington, and the rest of our team. We had a quick turnaround this time for the show. We saw you less than 5 months ago in San Diego. So it was a pretty quick turnaround, but we pulled it off, and we're all here. We hope you enjoyed the festivities yesterday and all of our education that's coming up today, tomorrow. Of course, 2 great parties still to go, 5:30 tonight, 5:30 tomorrow night. So we look forward to seeing everybody around the show. So thank you all for coming. We want to thank all of our sponsors, of course, for the event, most particularly here at the education. We want to thank Pacific Media Technologies, who is our education sponsor. I have Max Van Heel, the VP of Sales and Marketing for PMT, here to say a couple words.
Tom, I'll stand down here if you don't mind. Welcome to the first day of the educational sessions at PDMI East. As Tom said, I'm Max Van Heel. I'm the VP of Sales and Marketing at Pacific Media Technologies. Pacific Media Technologies for over 26 years has been an industry leader serving some of the biggest names in direct response television. Since 1986, we've maintained our reputation by providing excellent service pricing and speed of delivery to the market. And I just want to thank the PDMI for the opportunity. We are a founding member of PDMI, and we are proud and honored to be the sponsor of the education sessions here. I also want to thank the councils and the volunteers who have put in a bunch of time in bringing these educational sessions to you. And I think we have a great slate looking at the board outside, and I hope you guys can attend a lot of the sessions. I also want to thank, besides the council, the volunteers, that are not on the councils, but are here representing the panels. So thank you very much. I hope you enjoy the sessions, and as they say in our industry, but wait, there's more. Here's a quick promo from PMT Media, your sponsor. Thanks.
I started PMT to apply the principles that I learned in the live television business to the DR delivery business. What makes PMT different is our people and their dedication to this industry. Quality is the key to what we do, and as the DR business changes, we'll be changing with it and we'll be ahead of the game.
Pacific Media Technologies. Technology driven, quality guaranteed.
Thank you, Max, and thank you, PMT. We appreciate all of your assistance. We have a great group here today. As Max mentioned, we have 6 member councils in the PDMI. 5 of those councils are presenting the sessions today, leading off with the e-commerce council, which is helmed by Greg Silvano of Buyist. He's the chair of our e-commerce council. He's pulled together a great group here today, featuring we have Paul Wahlgren from BeautyStat Cosmetics, we have Shane Allor from Kount, and we have David Tiberia, who will be actually bookending the sessions over the next 2 days. David's from Bluewater. So welcome, and take it away, guys.
Thank you very much. So I love this topic. It's a lifetime value, and it gets to the heart of what a D2C campaign is all about. Why have a D2C campaign if you're not going to have a relationship with that consumer, right? Why have that direct-to-consumer relationship if you're not going to leverage that consumer as an asset for your business, right? To further your success, to make it easier to succeed in the future. It's an interesting concept because in this industry, it's kind of a new concept. It's not a new concept in marketing, but for direct response brand marketers, it used to be, I'm going to sell a product, I'm going to spend a lot of media, I'm going to get a lot of orders, and then I'm going to spend even more media to get more orders, and then more media to get more orders, as opposed to leveraging that customer and thinking of them as an asset over the long term. So I'm going to start with David. Do you see that shift in that industry? Before we get into tactics of how do you leverage the lifetime value of a customer, do you see that shift in the industry of, used to be one-off meatloaf pans, and now it's more about continuity and subscriptions and things like that?
Yeah, it's one of those things where hindsight's 20/20 vision, right? So, the DR industry was definitely founded on the concept of we've got something amazing to offer, we have an amazing product, we can leverage, tactics that are, nimble in terms of driving, using media at a cost-efficient way to drive response and to get sales. But then it became, I'll rebuy that audience over and over and over again, right? It's like, I built this audience, I made this consumer set, now I'm gonna repurchase and rebuy that audience. And in hindsight, it's not as efficient as it could have been. And, it's easy when the money's coming in and you're driving sales,
and the media
right?
is
And your
cheap.
products are growing and media is cheap.
Yeah.
But I think the one thing that any of us that have been involved in direct response for any period of time have already realized, which is like there's a constant evolution of what we do here in the direct response, direct to consumer industry. And one of the big changes now that you are definitely seeing is that lean into, I have a product, right, that can be a catalyst to build a customer base, and then to create line expansions and other additional pieces to build off of that. And that has definitely become, if you look at a lot of the major direct response television marketers that would generally do one-off products, you'll start to see that evolution of where, okay, we took Hempfana, right? We built that, and then we line expanded,
Right.
and then we added another product, and then it got pushed into Wahlgreens, and then the faith or the awareness you drove over here on the original Pain Cream product leads to all of this lifetime value.
And it's funny because in this industry, direct response advertising is very different than brand advertising, right? Brand advertising, you have Clydesdale horses galloping across a field, little Budweiser sign at the end of it, and ads over next. With direct response is buy this product right now. But what's interesting is that it's direct response advertising to build your brand. And I feel like that's one of the big shifts in this industry is that meatloaf pan, and I'm always going to use a meatloaf pan as an example, that meatloaf pan now has a name, and it's about that brand. It's as if these companies are building up things, and they don't want to sell that meatloaf pan just to retail. They want to build up that brand to sell to some large company.
It's because brand was a dirty word.
Right,
People are like,
exactly.
we don't do brand, we're smarter than that, right?
Right,
We're not
right.
gonna spend $1 million to just make you feel good about our logo.
Yep.
But really, forest through the trees, right? Brand is, yes, it's about image, but it's really just about creating a relationship that then you can further grow into, increase customer.
Which, Paul, you've done.
I guess I have.
There we go. Move the mic over to you.
Yeah. Well, I guess it's funny as we talk about direct response. I always think about selling that white labeled product. Building a brand is a whole different animal, and usually down the road, an acquisition of a company is buying a brand, not a widget, because anybody can knock off the widget. So yes, building the brand is something that is step-by-step process. We definitely, at the beginning, were very promotionally oriented because nobody knew who the hell we were. We weren't in retail. We flipped on a website in 2019 and said, hey, we're here, and then it's like, okay, you start to, let's get a little bit of editorial. Let's get a link back to the website. It's like it's
How
not
many
any one
products?
thing.
When you launched, how many
Two.
products? Two. What were they?
The vitamin C, our vitamin C product, which we have a really good vitamin C. It's patented and stabilized vitamin C, so pretty unique in the industry. And we're developed by a cosmetic chemist. We're a cosmetic chemist story. That story hasn't really been told in the industry because those are the guys behind everything in any store you go to.
And how many products now?
Now we're about 7 SKUs, different sizes, and yes, keep slowly expanding, but now we're in major retailer. We're in, during 2020, during the pandemic, there was that shift to, people at home taking care of their skin. We had a lot of support for minority-led and black-owned businesses. Ron's person of color, the founder of the company. And suddenly I closed Nordstrom, Neiman Marcus, Saks, Blue Mercury, all very quickly, and been working on Ulta for quite a while. We got into Ulta last year, did a test a year ago, 5 months ago, launched in all 1,300 doors. So we have a nice combination of a diversified, I'd say, D2C business, our website, our Amazon business, because we control Amazon. We do Seller Central, we do, the FBA. So everything, we have under our control. And we have good retail partners who are super supportive. And then it helps, bottom line, it helps when you make a frickin' product that's good, not a bullshit marketing story.
If you're dealing with lifetime value, if you're dealing with continuity, it has to be good. It has to be good enough for
Otherwise,
people to not.
you can't get a subscription. Somebody's not going to subscribe to something
Right.
they bought one off and it wasn't good.
Right.
They're going to oh wow, I like this, I'm hooked. We try to build products that people get addicted to be honest, because they work. because we do that due diligence of safety testing, consumer studies, clinical studies, before we ever think about putting something in a box. So we know we have a good product.
All right, so let's talk a couple details. Let's say I have a product. Okay, so and it's something that can expand out. It won't be a meatloaf pan. It has something that could be more. Natural thinking of off the street marketer, somebody who thinks they know what they're doing, is okay. I got a customer. I got an order. They're obviously going to receive a welcome order confirmation email, right? So there's that transactional email. What's the next thing to start building out? What's an obvious sort of
Reviews, feedback.
Okay.
Reviews for sure. Because
absolutely required.
You want reviews, and also think about today. It's so different. Like, okay, you just bought our product. You can do user-generated content. Suddenly, you put out an ad, and suddenly it's more authentic when the users who like the products are talking about it and putting in a review, and the reviews aren't bullshit. Now you have to work with services to syndicate them, to sort of gather them all together.
Yeah.
So
which are easier and easier now. There are tons of tools.
It's funny because I didn't know about it. Something just happened real recently. To a quick side story. So we did the subscription box Ipsy, and Ipsy's huge. We had hundreds of thousands of products getting in people's hands. We had no idea that Ipsy was gathering reviews. Through Power Reviews, we could syndicate them back and get them for our website, which helps us bump it up. It was money well spent with Power Reviews to get those, that were sitting there.
Those types of tools are fabulous.
Exactly.
Because you can instantly leverage. I mean, the amount of time and energy that Amazon, right, as a company spends just to gather reviews.
Yep.
It's part and parcel to their business, because one of the things that people look for is that consumer feedback,
Correct.
right? They trust those reviews. They use them to help make a purchase decision. When you can leverage all of what they're spending, right,
Correct.
to make other people review, and then leverage it for your own brand.
Oh, even on Amazon, to just pick up on what you just said, I have from in the early days when I flipped on Amazon, I was doing it all myself, like literally on clockwork. Every 2 weeks, anybody who bought my product, I'd send them through the Amazon system, hi, review our product. And that's something that was a focus from day one, of get that feedback within like 2 to 3 weeks of somebody trying something.
Yeah, when we have a client that needs us to build the website for them and do the marketing copy, the very first thing we do is go to Amazon and look at the reviews of the product. And it's both as a market research and also for content on the website. And for market research, it's really interesting. We had a client that had an exercise product, and their whole website was about it can alleviate your knee pain, and also you lose weight, you get fit. And the website was kind of a mishmash of different messages. And we went to their Amazon site, found hundreds and hundreds of reviews, 5 stars, and overwhelmingly it was 50 plus people saying it's the only thing that solved my knee pain. Nothing else solved it, this solved it. So we changed the whole website to that copy. It's all about knee pain. It's not about exercise. It's not about fitness. So it changed the whole message of what they were doing. They ended up redoing their commercial based on that content. So they had these reviews. They were sitting there. They never actually looked at them. They looked at the stars. Let's make sure that it's 5 stars. But they weren't looking at the content and the message of those people on why they were actually continuing to use the product. Right? They bought the product because of the initial message, but they actually used the product for that reason, right? That was in the reviews.
And that comes back to one of the cores of direct-to-consumer marketing anyway, which is we'd have clients come to us and say, should we do a focus group? It's like they're 40, 50 grand, $30,000. They can be unreliable. They take a lot of time. You can also run $20,000, $30,000 of media, see who responds, see what your feedback is from consumers, and you have a built-in, feedback loop and customer, and customer information you can then use to improve your product, focus your website, focus your marketing, and sell more in the long run. So yeah, this is leveraging the things that we've always done, right? Always have done these things in the direct response world, but then making them more sticky so that people come back and purchase
right.
them.
And I think too the source always matters as well. I'm a sucker for social media, so if you have a fully encompassing marketing strategy, you get someone on the hook. I'm lazy, I'm gonna use Instagram, I'm gonna use Facebook as my source of truth for brands, and that's where I get reviews, that's where I get the feedback.
Yeah.
And the brand loyalty comes with that. Once I see there's positive reviews, hey, maybe there's an influencer that uses the product or service, that bolsters my confidence in the brand too.
Yeah. So one other story on this, that we as a company, we've been doing e-commerce websites for 12 years in this industry. It was in January, first time ever after 12 years, that we sent out questions to some customers on, you know, would you do a testimonial? Would you do a review, right? Just to update our marketing copy. And this is after 12 years of doing this, right?
Greg, even you guys have a cart now.
We never asked anybody. And the feedback was so powerful that it's the first slide of our sales deck. There's a whole slide of just a few quotes from people. And when we present that to people, the response back is like they don't care about anything else that was in that the slide deck. It was the reviews of the existing customers and what they said. It's hugely, hugely powerful.
Yep.
Okay, so as a new brand, you have some orders coming in. Number one is getting reviews, right? So is that a pretty safe assumption?
Say so.
Have any of you done surveys? Have you ever done a survey of customers? Instead of just a review, rate it 5 stars, things like that. Do you ever say, why did you buy it, anything like that? Have you ever done that?
We do, it's part of the process of bringing products to market. We do our safety testing. We do a consumer study on every product, pre-launch actually, to get the feedback before we take it to a clinical. Because
and how do you leverage that? So there's I don't know consumer studies.
No,
So
actually what happens is a consumer study, I always like to say you have qualitative and quantitative in, let's say, the beauty world. 90% of participants said their skin looked better. That's sort of, okay, that's an opinion.
Yep.
Now we go to, because we had that data, now we go to the clinical. The clinical is a 4-week study, 50 people, every week they're taking photos, they're reviewed by a dermatologist, and they measure with their face the gauge of the wrinkle, 70% reduction of lines and wrinkles across the cohort. That's a spec. So between those two data points, you have some great data.
Marketing gold.
Marketing. Yeah. It's a marketing gold because it's not bullshit. It's real.
Right.
You know, and if you make a claim, you have to be able to back it up. Otherwise, you have the FTC all over you saying, you said it cures whatever, and that's a drug claim. You can't do that. So we can back up what we say within reason, you know, and you have to be careful. It's a fine line between making too strong a claim. So we base it on what we know and what we have the data on.
And I will say too, you can affect sort of surveys indirectly, so you don't have to full blown send out a survey. Mm-hmm. Maybe I'll structure my offering as a subscription versus a one time. So if you can say, gosh, this customer's come back 5 different times monthly. It's pretty confident to say that's a good customer. Maybe invest into that customer, and you didn't have to directly send out a survey.
You can say 85% repurchase rate.
Right.
That's
Correct.
a high number.
Right.
Which we get data like that. It's huge. You know.
Anything on the survey side?
We've done consumer surveys. I think before even that too, which is a great tactic to understand what's happening. Then the other thing that eventually we should talk about here is consumer data collection, right? Which is contact information, email information, CRM information, which to me is maybe almost more important than reviews and surveys because
right out of the gate.
Right, because yes, we need reviews to drive that future sale, right? You need to build trust in the brand. You need to build feedback. The survey stuff can help you refine your products, refine the website, refine the marketing, make it more effective, and that's going to improve your overall profitability in the long term. But where the real power is to generate more sales easily, in my opinion, comes down to getting customer data, putting it into either a CRM or marketing CRM that can help you leverage that information and do it from day one so that you're collecting that and you've got that, you have that list, so to speak. Everyone talks about the list, but you have that consumer, list that you can leverage because it's first party data, which is a word that we're going to be hearing more and more and more. First party data, and that's the foundation to me of first party data for a growing brand.
That's your world, Shane.
It
first
is.
Party data.
Yeah.
Want to expand just even on a technical level? A lot of people won't know first party data. What's that mean?
Right, and I always look at it through the lens of what I do on a day-to-day basis, which is fraud prevention. So we're stopping the 1%, but every single transaction is being assessed for risk. So the 99% sits there, sort of stale, but is super valuable because that's the 99% that are good consumers. So it's now we can lean into sort of developing a marketing strategy. Maybe it's, now I've got 30% of my customer base using devices out of California. Well, what does that demographic look like compared to if my customer base was in North Dakota? You can start to I would say, market smarter. around the first-party data that you're collecting from a risk perspective, but reverse engineered into more of a marketing strategy.
So it's collecting data as just a marketer. You don't have to do anything. This isn't difficult things. You're not asking questions of the consumer simply because they ordered and you got their credit card number and you got their in fact they ordered on a device.
First party data is data that you own because it's your customer.
Correct.
Yeah. Not I bought a list and I'm trying to spam these people.
You have a big list, right?
Good size. I mean, we grew it. I mean, at first it was, when we first started in 2019, Ron had built up BeautyStat as a blog, and we had like 30,000 on Facebook, 30,000 Instagram. Now we're well over 100,000, but these are opt-in people. And then also, like I said, that's our consumer database. If we quickly need a couple hundred people to say, hey, can you test this lab sample product? We go to BeautyStat Beauties on Facebook, we get feedback, and we quickly and we've engaged with these people for free.
I mean, this is not even
normally you have to go pay a test company to go do a consumer test. I'm like, we run it.
And they're happy to do it.
And they're happy to do it.
It's a new touch point with that customer of yours.
You know what, I always say, it's like, and we do this with our retail partners, it's like, how do you bring them, quote, into the kitchen, into the lab? We have our own lab outside New York City. We develop all our own formulas. And we really, like that when they feel they're part of it. And if somebody's like, oh yeah, I reviewed the product before it went on to market, and it's almost like customers feel that they're part of you. And we do, like, we're doing Ulta Beauty FLC, the big field leadership conference out in Las Vegas. And we set up a lab. The people from Ulta will be able to come and like mix up vitamin C in our, quote, lab, which is sort of interesting. And I think, again, bringing people in, just like you said, that customer relationship, you bring them in different levels, testing the product, trying it. It changes sort of your relationship with the customer for the long term,
Does this require, executive level strategic decisions on what that messaging is? I mean, if you're dealing with a CRM, you're dealing with emails that are going out and just an overall campaign, who's deciding what that is? Is that just pure marketing and that's it? Is it
I think it's a little bit of trial and error. Right?
Evolution too. We've evolved. I mean, so it's a bit
Expand
of both.
on that. Right.
Well, I mean, I think at first we were like, "Hi, we're here." Nobody knew who the hell we were.
Please buy.
But I still feel like we're that, because I can go in an Ulta store. We're in 1,300 Ulta stores. We have this much room on a shelf, and you go in the store. The person working in the store doesn't even know you're in there. I'm like, it's constant education. It's constant, like you said. How do you keep hitting consumers? How do you keep training the people and just getting them to learn about it? And that is, it's not any one thing, it's everything. So it is, all these tactics coming together,
It's that first step. It's like, how do you move forward? Or you take a step.
Exactly.
Right? And I think the biggest mistake that a lot of people do is they just don't do it.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you have, in order to, and we haven't really gotten super tactical here yet. I feel like it's early, guys.
Sure.
It's not enough coffee yet. You guys need like
Test and,
energy going
test
in
and
here.
try, test and try.
But yeah, for sure, like, you have to do it. We haven't gotten tactical yet, but all the things that we will start to talk about tactically here eventually the first step is you have to actually execute on them, because you didn't know what you were probably doing out of the gate.
Of course not.
When you drop that first email to your first list after your first.
And you're terrified sending it, right? You're thinking everybody's going to unsubscribe, you're going to hate you, and other typos, right? It's paralysis just sending that first one.
We've kept it getting better, different. We start with a very simple system. Now we use, say, Klaviyo, to help,
it's a great system.
Run it right. I mean, all these tools, all these, APIs that connect to everything. Even the funny thing is that I see QuickBooks sitting in front of me. My APIs that connect to our warehouse, customer service things. Like, when I see a pissed off customer, it hurts me. I'm like, let's take care of them. I send the warehouse an email. I said, send this customer one of everything. They had one bad product, and they send it out. I send that person. They give me the tracking quickly. I personally go back to a customer. They're like, "That shit, the co-founder of the company just sent me an email that," and a year later, that woman came back. She goes, "You took care of me." She goes, "I've been talking about you. I've been trying other products." I said, "Well, that's all I can ask for." And what did it cost me? My cost of goods and my products to take care of that customer. I made a customer for life.
Lifetime value.
And it's all these things working together that are so important to take care of that lifetime value of the customer. It's the little things, and do the freaking little things.
Yeah. Well, you threw out a name, right? Klaviyo. So Klaviyo is an email. It's an email marketing CRM product. If you ever use MailChimp, similar. It's got a lot more data baked in the back end. But let's talk about quickly how something like that can drive overall, brand and sales growth. So I've got a customer that actually uses that product. Client uses that product, and every time they send out an email, they probably generate somewhere to the tune of at least $15,000 to $20,000 in sales because they have a giant. They're an established brand. They've been around for like 8 or 9 years, and they've got.
And the media cost of that is about $0.
Right. So yeah, that's and precisely it. It's like they've gathered like 150, 200,000 consumers on their list over time, but they go in. You look at the Shopify or Buyist or anything is feeding data into there. Who is the person? What do they look like? What have they purchased? When was the last time they purchased? Like the information that within is very deep, right? So using your meatloaf pan example, I've got a meatloaf pan. I am now launching a line of cooking pans, right?
Right.
This person bought this, within the last 6 months, hasn't been back. I'm now going to send them an email about this pan. It costs you precisely nothing, right? But you've now taken someone who already knows who you are, right? Already is using your product. Hopefully they like it, right? Hopefully they like the product. And they are already closer to your brand and more willing to purchase because they've purchased with you in the past.
Yep.
So now, out of the gate, instead of just launching into a cold world, right, and throwing a commercial out on national television and hoping, or throwing out a Facebook campaign or launching a campaign on Pinterest and praying that it just gains traction, you have the opportunity to gain immediate traction with people who are already brand aware. And then all the things that we already talked about, which is driving reviews, those things start to happen, and they create a foundation so that when you do launch that national campaign, when you do go on Google, when you do go on Facebook, there's already we call it like a base layer, right? But there's already that base layer of information about your product, so that when people are interested, they're not walking into something that looks like, well, it just launched. I mean, it might have just launched, right? But at least it doesn't feel like it just launched.
You know what I've noticed culturally, even for us as a company, when we started to send out surveys for tickets, customer support, those types of things, how was your experience? We were better at support because we knew we were engaging and asking the customers afterwards, how was your experience? And I think if you, as a marketer, are going into this as I'm in it for lifetime value. I'm in it because I want these customers to be happy so that I can build this list and they love my brand and I can make it easier to launch additional products. I feel like culturally as a company, once you make that decision, you're doing a better job at taking care of those customers, which is, it's not how a lot of marketers used to work in this industry. It was let's just get the product out, let's make sure that the media is working and the average order is where it needs to be and our conversion rates is where it needs to be. If you're like, I want, we just sold 50,000 of these things, I want 50,000 happy customers so that my next product is easier, you're making different decisions as a company. You're making different decisions for that campaign. You're making different decisions for the customer support and things like that.
I think one of the other things to jump on what you said is once you build some of these customers who've bought, and again, it depends on obviously the category and the product, but we have a product that people want to come back to. If they bought a couple times, like you said on your list, that they've bought a couple times, then you offer them the subscribe and save. And then suddenly you build an ongoing revenue stream that, wow, they just order every 2 months and they get one bottle. And suddenly that subscribe and save, and you see there's APIs that connect obviously to just run the subscription part of the business. That's a huge plus.
Yeah.
Because I was saying I see it growing when I look at our KPIs and analytics on Amazon. I see it growing, our own site. So that to me is a constant thing you have to monitor. But you don't, in the beginning, 3 years ago, we didn't think about subscription because, God, be happy if somebody buys you the first time, let alone. But then as you evolve as a company, you really have to look at that. If it's a product that lends itself to that.
Right.
Well, because it drives your ROI.
Totally.
Because you already spent the money to get the customer.
To acquire the customer. Now this is LTV. This is that long-term value.
If it costs you $30 to get it, and every time they come back they spend $30,
so your CPA,
your ROAS goes up. Whatever.
Monetized.
Yeah.
Monetized at CPA from the first time because you guys know in most of the world the CPA is close to the cost of whatever that first product is. Then you want to build that that cart value. The whole point is I'm less about that. I'm more about how do I get them to buy and be a customer for life with us as we keep expanding out the portfolio of products and bringing some new innovation out there.
It has to affect what you do for new products as well, right? I mean, if you're looking at new products, you have to be looking at your existing customer base of it's easy to get this in front of them as opposed to a whole new market, right?
And also as the market evolves, you look at, well, who is our customer? It's funny when I thought about it at the beginning 5 years ago, I'm like, oh yeah, we make anti-aging products. I'm like, oh, shit, we don't make anti-aging products. Now we make products that work for everybody. Because somebody said, oh, your products for men. Are they for women? I said, they're for people with skin. So all people can use our products. We make That's why all our products, a lot of them say universal. Unless we're making a specific treatment for, okay, I have a line and a wrinkle, or I have, age spot. Yeah, you have to have age to be able to use an anti-aging product. So, sending the right message to the right consumer is critical too, because it's a mismatch if you're sending anti-aging products to a 25-year-old with perfect skin. You have to know who your customer is too.
Does it change the math of campaigns on the marketing side of things? Is it more complicated to work this way in terms of what the return on ad spend is if you're dealing with lifetime value, knowing that the initial sale is just not going to be what covers?
Yeah, of course it is. It always is, right? It always gets more complicated, I feel like. But yeah, it changes the math, but it also changes the risk tolerance, and it's going to depend on the brand and what they can support or what the company can support, right? Like, this is not, the purpose of talk is not to advocate running at a loss, right? The purpose of this is to understand how you can better leverage what you've already created.
Yeah.
So, there has been definitely an evolution. We come back to evolution of the direct response market, which was, it was first drive ROI, direct ROI, and it was direct sales only. And remember, now it's direct in retail, right? And now it's direct in retail and then ongoing. So, can it change the math for your campaign? Of course, because with a product like yours, where where you're confident about the continuity and you know that someone's going to repurchase at a certain rate, you can afford a different, initial sale cost, right? It can maybe be almost the cost of the product, or maybe even a little more if you've already got established sales.
Exactly.
But it's really going to be dependent on, with a pan or a meatloaf pan or whatever, the math might be different. So part of being able to be successful is to have partners, people within the industry that know that kind of stuff and can help walk you through those things.
Forecast
We
it.
run financial models with all of our clients before launch, because we want to make sure we're not walking them into a situation where they can't win, right? Because it's bad. No one wants to lose money. And when you're launching a product to a consumer, there's always going to be risk of failure, right? That just is the industry. But we want to help remove at least know that if it does work and we do get response, that we can actually make it, function financially. So yeah, it's important that you have a partner, or that you do the math and the time to understand what you can afford and how you break even, but then also how you become profitable in the long term.
And I always look at how your offering changes again. I'll be a broken record on this, but the tried and true methods of the razor versus the razor blades. When you acquire a customer for, to shave, it's all right. Let's sell them the razor very cheaply, or cheap, and then we're going to upsell
the printer, the ink,
the printer and the ink, right? And then that's where those companies make their money. So it's figuring out the math at customer acquisition, which is the hardest part. But then again, now it's layering in the lifetime value, which is the most important part, because if you have a consistent customer, it's the best customer.
So requirements so far. You launch a campaign, you launch a product, you're starting to build a brand, you must have a CRM. Fair to say? Okay.
Yeah.
Klaviyo's been mentioned, Constant Contact, MailChimp, Drip, ActiveCampaign, Salesforce, HubSpot.
Yeah,
is a big
HubSpot's
one.
a great
Any
one.
other big ones?
Those all of them. There's 1,000 of them.
Those are the big ones.
You can trip into Google and fall into a pool of them. They're everywhere.
Exactly.
And they're largely a commodity. I mean, they're all good.
They are.
Right? It's not like you can make a horrible decision.
Well, you can. If you're a small business, don't
Salesforce?
Don't choose Salesforce. It's a terrible choice.
You'll need a developer for everything.
Right. You'll rue the day that you chose Microsoft Dynamics.
Yeah,
So don't do that either.
So you have a CRM. You should be doing reviews. Okay, so reviews, Yotpo is a big one.
Yotpo,
Any others that are super well known?
Bazaar Voice. You ever
Well,
use
Bazaar
that?
Voice and Power Reviews are the two
Yep.
big ones that
Great.
we've talked to.
Yep, that's a big one.
And those are going to gather reviews, like you said, from third parties, other marketplaces.
You got to look at your retail
aggregate.
partners. So actually, when we did the research, who was working with Ulta, Nordstrom, Neiman Marcus, Bluemercury? Because if they're not working with them, well,
Yeah.
you're not going to go with them.
Doesn't
It's
do
a waste.
anything for you.
Yeah.
Okay, so you have to do reviews, you need a CRM. What about the content that's going out, right? Not everybody's a creative thinker.
Oh, we're talking about creative.
There we go.
Creative.
So what do you say to customers after, thank you for your order has shipped? What's a natural kind of, there's a drip campaign, a nurture campaign, there's something that's like, you don't want to hit them every week with,
No.
hey, come buy another one, hey, buy another one, buy another one. I know Gary V had a line, jab, jab, hook,
Yeah.
right? So educate, offer.
Yeah.
Educate, offer. Is there, I mean, what's some good content that somebody would think of if you just, you're on your own, you're launching a product? Founder story? I mean, that kind of stuff?
I love content. Like, we love creative at Bluewater, right?
Yep.
It's the foundation of our business. Good content sells, right? Good creative sells. There was this, again, I keep going back to the old school history, right? The old history was, we make a TV commercial. What else do we make? We make a TV commercial, right? That's what we did. We've
made
already
a
done
60
it.
second, a 30 second.
You want me to do it again? I've already built a TV commercial. But now, right? But now we're talking about, we're out shooting and we're out gathering and acquiring and thinking creatively. It's like, okay, yeah, we've shot this commercial, but we need Facebook content. We need Google.
How do you slice it?
Content, right?
Yeah.
We need content for a Performance Max campaign. We need content for our emails. So then all of a sudden it becomes a cycle, right? Where you don't just go out and think one time, I acquire one time, and that's all I do. Instead, you start looking at it and you go, okay, I need that long-term evolution of, I'm going to continue to engage with consumers. I'm going to continue to produce content. I'm going to put it in places where when consumers find out about me, they can have confidence, right, to engage in that purchase. And, the creative does matter, but again, you have to have a process to understand what the performance of those emails are, right?
Yep.
So if you're using, Klaviyo, if you're using MailChimp, you need to leverage the tracking tools and the performance tools that they have in there so you can actually understand if I sent out this creative, did anyone respond?
Right.
And if they responded, was it the response I wanted? So
Did
that
they
when you make a
unsubscribe?
change,
Right.
when you make a change, then did it improve? Did it get worse? And then, it's the optimization puzzle, right? Move, ship, move.
What's the skill set for that? Is this something that just the digital marketer that's already working on the campaign, the Google guy, the Facebook guy, is it the same skill set, or is it a unique?
Actually, there's one
new
thing just to add on what you said. I think one of the things that I learned as you, again, evolve as a brand is making sure that you pull things together. The problem is sometimes you do need to look up at a high level and say, oh, shoot, we have our website, we have our Amazon pages, we're doing social, we have an email campaign. Oh, wait, we're going to do something on digital TV, connected TV, or I'm going to do a billboard. You got to pull all that shit together.
Yeah.
So many times people like, oh, they did it, and you look at this brand at different places, it doesn't look like the same brand. So that to me is a critical part, is having somebody at high enough level, that says, okay, we have to align this. And as you give data to outside parties like Ulta, we make sure the PDP, if a customer looks at all these places, they see the same bullet points. You need that consistency. Again, it's also hammering the same message along. So I think that's critical, is alignment, I like to say, as in the common thread.
Brand voice.
Yeah.
It's brand voice.
But brands don't always get that right, especially when you're a new one and you're evolving. You're like, oh, shoot, suddenly you have a digital person who went off on a different tangent. Like, no, you got to pull that together. So yes, have the brand book. Spend on the video and marketing assets. Make sure that your alignment on that. And when you do new ones, you're rolling them all out at the same time. That kind of thing.
And you're going to make missteps.
Of course.
Like, you're gonna
Nobody's
have
perfect.
missteps, right? You're going to have missteps, but you want to trial and error.
Yeah.
Keep it in the same brand voice, and just don't be afraid to make a mistake. I mean, it's not like
Is there a common mistake? Is there one that you could foresee most people doing?
Yeah, not using a call to action, right?
Oh, interesting,
All of
yeah.
a sudden, people start making emails, and they're like, oh, well, hey, we have this great
Very
product.
passive.
Check this out. It's brand new. It's got this new technology. It's really cool. You'll love it, right? Okay, great. You got a picture of it on there. It looks great. You send it out. You never asked anyone to buy the darn thing. You didn't put a link in it to get back.
Yeah.
You would be shocked, and now we're getting outside of the email world, but the number of people that will do organic posts on social media and not link it back to their website.
Yeah.
It's like mind-blowing to me, because if the goal is to generate interest and then a response, and you don't give someone a way to respond to you, then what have you done?
What about SMS? So we've talked email, you just talked blog posts. Do you leverage SMS at all?
I don't really, not yet.
Really?
Actually, I mean, we're starting to look at, because now that we're in retail, I mean, there's I've found a new a friend of mine who has a company that, really interesting that now that we're in retail, and let's say we look at a zip code and we're in the Ulta store over here, you can actually do the billboard, a piece of physical direct mail to that person's house, because my email box is full, but my mailbox is not that full these days. I think that's an interesting thing that overlooked to throw that one in there.
There's some players in this industry that do that.
But pulling all those things together, and then if that customer, they geo-fence that area, they go to the Ulta store, oh, suddenly they're in front, and you see it. I get SMSs sometimes from different companies. I'm in front of the store, I saw the billboard, oh, I got the direct mail. again, hammering in the brand message, because that
point.
person doesn't know who you are. So I think there's some new things to pull into that mix of, quote, digital marketing, where I do like the idea of getting a card. What is it? The Bed Bath & Beyond card. Everybody's seen those in somebody's
20%,
house.
20%
off or 10% all the time. But, it's like those ambiguous things. The whole point is just how do you integrate this in where it works, where it fits with your brand?
On SMS,
Yeah.
I don't know if there's anyone out here who does lead gen, right? SMS and lead gen are like this,
Really?
right? Because
Why?
Because how many of you have gotten a phone call from a phone number that looked like it came from your area code in the last like 48 hours?
Yeah.
Anyone?
Yeah.
Spam call, all of you, right?
Yep.
People don't pick up those unknown. Now there's tech out there, right, where you can actually now take your phone number and basically force through the actual the caller ID, so that they know it's your brand, right?
Yeah.
And you're not just like completely cold calling them out of nowhere. But the stat on SMS reads is that 70 to 80% of SMSs get read because they show up
huge.
on your home screen,
Yeah.
right? So like even if you just touch the button and you do this, right, you can see obviously everything's here, so you read it. For that, where someone engages with your website in a lead gen capacity, we know that first time to touch is wildly important, right? Like you want to be in contact with that consumer as immediately as you can, as quickly as you can, within a minute or two if possible. That the SMS breaks through the noise in a way that sometimes phone calls can't.
I've noticed myself that I'm more willing to provide my mobile number knowing that I can still mark as junk and block it now if I want. It used to be that there was no way I was giving you my mobile number because if I was getting text messages from you, I was getting angry, right? It was this invasion. There was something very personal about an SMS message.
Yeah.
And I think it goes back to the ease to engage with the customer. Right? So it's easy to, one, be a part of the community, but also, hey, you know what? This isn't for me, right? And you can move on. And it kind of goes back to the feedback loop. That's so powerful for marketers.
I think the one thing I like with SMS is, and I'm sure everybody's experienced that, when you sign up for something, you start getting it, you can just hit stop and it stops.
Right. Yeah.
And you're off. And I'm like, okay. And it's almost like, oh, wow, it stopped. Because an email and all these other things, you don't know when will it ever stop.
Right.
So at least that feels like you have control.
You touched on that too actually, I want to stay in SMS in a second, but I want to finish that thought. You had talked about all the different systems. You have to pull in from the website, you have to pull in from the fulfillment system, things like that. It can become unruly trying to manage, and you're dealing with legal compliance on things. I mean, there's CAN-SPAM Act that you have to have unsubscribes.
GDRP, if you're going to do anything in Europe, that's a whole nother animal to run down.
Yeah, so, but on the SMS, we did a webinar last month. It was kind of a precursor to this, and somebody had a great line that I think I should repeat. It's not my own original thought here. It was they use email for informational, right? So, but if they have a flash sale, it's always through SMS. It's this, hey, I'll order today. Here's a sale that's only today. It's this immediate thing. And that's all they use SMS for. So it's not this overused medium for them, which is cool.
Can we ask? We have someone from one of the world's largest data companies.
I know.
So we've been talking about first party versus third party data, right? Do you have any insight into speak about this? Where is this head? I want to know personally.
Right. We deal with all things first party. Yeah. So it goes back to it's free. But it's through the lens of fraud prevention. So we're trying to stop the bad guys. But again, when I'd said earlier, you've got a bucket of the 99% that are good customers that now I can associate. It's Shane's iPhone. So if I know that Shane's a good customer, well, let's drill into the SMS route because I know he's a good customer. It's easy. It's cheap to do. He's a normal human being. He texts just like everyone else, so it's easy. And then as well, it's associating it to the email addresses as well when we look at it from a fraud and risk perspective. But what's to say you can't use that data that's readily available in order to drive marketing and acquire customers? And then we go back.
What would be big examples, just high-level examples of some of that data? Just I don't know, is it location? Is that the?
Yeah, there's a story I always tell on the phone with a customer. We talk about stopping fraud, but we've got all this reporting. A customer that we work with, New Balance, was struggling with acquiring more customers and understanding more about their customers today? Well, we used our digital data, which was, all right, where are these devices coming from? Well, we saw a huge correlation to devices that are iPhones that are using Amex cards to purchase shoes that are located in Northern California. Instead of just spraying and praying, we decided, well, gosh, now we can really target our audience into that demographic.
Interesting.
I mean, this comes back to one of the BI products we launched a little over a year ago, and it's very geolocation based because it's such a powerful way to understand where your consumers are coming from. So we take all of our customer data, we take their geolocation, where they came from, we aggregate it against U.S. Census data, we create an index of where a response should be for your core demo based on what the population of that is within a DMA, and then we look for DMAs that over-index. And it's like, what can you do with that information? Well, then I can use Google to target better, right? I can geolocate my Facebook better. I can talk to retailers in those DMAs and make sure that my retailers are stocking product properly in a place where we know there's going to be more velocity. If I'm running a lead gen organization and I need sales reps, I can put more sales reps on the ground. Like, there's so much I can buy long form television in that specific market. Like, that geolocation information gives you so much ability
You can
to
do stock product over at a warehouse on that side.
Yeah, totally. Like, and you can change your messaging if you need to. Like, all of a sudden you start opening up all these doors to build, expand, optimize.
Where
grow.
do you do that kind of analysis? Like, are these just you grabbing data from 50 different places, throwing it
Okay,
into
we
one?
built that one, so that came from. So we built that tool. That's called Insight IQ. That's part of our analytics suite that we used for our clients who are advertising with us to understand their TV performance, their media performance, how that goes in. But that is leveraging, in the end, first-party data, right? Sales data from who's purchased. We can pull data in from Buyist, we can pull data in from Shopify, we can pull data in if you're Amazon third party, right? We can pull in information from Amazon, we can pull information from telesales. All that gets combined, aggregated, and pushed together to understand response patterns.
What are the KPIs if we're dealing with customer engagement, right? So we're talking about email, nurture campaigns, maybe social media. Actually, before this question, let me go to social media. Facebook still a thing? Are you still creating a page for your product and putting it out there and trying to get followers and engaging with people on Facebook?
Yeah.
Instagram, TikTok? I mean, is it
Still a thing.
Still a thing?
Still a thing.
Still a touch point, and you got a team working on that? Or is it just make sure nobody's complaining on Facebook? And
No, it's still the world's largest social media tool. I mean, Zuckerberg may have finally hit his first audience usership decline, but it's like broadcast TV, right?
Like deck chair
Yeah.
off the
Is
Titanic.
it as big as it once was? No, there's been a little bit of decline, but it's still the biggest
Still there.
way to reach people, right?
Yeah. Okay. Do you have a social media? Is it a significant part of your efforts at all, or is
Definitely, yeah, because especially when you have so much user-generated content and interaction, and you're tagging people, and that to me is such a constant thing, So it's like from a D2C perspective, you want those engaged customers. You want them talking about the product, and then they're sharing. It's like they become your brand ambassadors unofficially, because we don't really pay influencers and things like that. We give people products sometimes, we let them try it. So those are those micro, larger influences. But sometimes it's just the regular person who has a small following, and they connect to someone, and it's those kind of connections, I think, that are more real in a way.
Just touch points, right?
Oh yeah, and yes, having a TikTok page, and having Ron, the founders, putting out good content, and all these things help. I mean, I think on TikTok we went sort of viral. We surpassed 10 million or 11 million views now of some of our videos and things, which is crazy.
Yeah.
So that's why we'll have a headline in People magazine or what is it, In Style, BeautyStat, viral vitamin C. There's a headline in there. I'm like, okay, and then that's on, InStyle.com with a link of our product to Amazon, to buy at Amazon or to buy at Ulta or to buy whoever pays them the best affiliate fee. Could be, Neiman Marcus or Dermstore.com. Those things, and it's funny how all those things just happen together.
Yeah, exactly. One of my favorite stories in content. So for me, the engagement with a customer, that nurture campaign, that educational, the informative stuff, it's hard to come up with right? It can be hard to come up with. If you're just not a writer, you're not an editor, it's kind of, what do I want to talk about? So one of the things I love was Mark Cuban, ESPN. ESPN had Mark Cuban do a speech for something, I forget what it was years and years ago. And it was a 60-minute speech where he was at a podium and he was, took some questions, but he was talking about something. And normally, if you're just like me, you'd think ESPN was promoting Mark Cuban for the event. Come to this event. The keynote is Mark Cuban. He's going to give a speech. And then after that, it's just kind of done. He did his thing, right? Mark Cuban drew in the crowd, so as a marketer, let's get the crowd in. But what ESPN did was brilliant. They had tweets for 3 months after the event saying, hear what Mark Cuban said about this. Hear what Mark Cuban said about this. Mark Cuban didn't like this. And they took this 60 minutes of audio and probably sliced it into 5 minutes of different little sound bites and used it as content. They didn't have to come up with anything, right? They just used that content. It goes to what you were saying before. The new photos, the new video shoots are really about a lot more stuff, that kind of content.
We will now shoot with a TV camera lens here and attach directly to it a cell phone lens.
Really?
Because I mean, there are certain platforms, Instagram, TikTok, where this 16 by 9, 9 by 16 vertical video format is key. And if your content doesn't look like that, it won't resonate. So it
looks too slick. It looks too produced.
We want
as opposed to I
acquire-
want it real. I want that person who I felt like really he filmed it.
Yeah, you want to acquire that. We acquire them both at the same time because again, it's like don't double your efforts. Don't pay. We say don't pay twice to learn what you already know.
Yeah.
Same thing here. It's like don't double create your content. Like be smart about it. Go in and make things that work.
Yeah.
And it makes it easier to engage with the customer. Everyone's got a phone here, right? So if videos are on Instagram, which most people here probably have an Instagram, it's going to be easier to engage with the customer instead of investing a lot more into a more heavily produced.
Yeah, I think there's a content panel about this later about producing things for different mediums. I think it's gonna be pretty awesome. But
it's a great topic.
But like an advanced, can we do a quick advanced ninja move about how all this stuff pulls together, right? So we've talked about addresses, we've talked about emails, we've talked about consumer data and first-party data and how we do all this. So let's say that we're talking about your product line, right? And it's continuity product. We know people fall off the continuity wagon over time. It's a regimen. It's like, oh, we're a little tight on money. Cut it off.
I had too many. I have too few.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
So you want to get them re-engaged, right? So the first thing we do is we go in and we look, and we go into Klaviyo or Shopify or Buyist. We pull a list of all the people that haven't purchased within the last 4 months, right? So we know they're close to the brand. We know they purchased recently, but they've recently fallen off. So we take that list. So remember, we've been collecting in our CRM. So we've got address information, we've got email information, we have it all piled together. We pull that out. So what do we do with it? Well, we launch an email campaign, right? And we build an email campaign. Maybe we're giving them a 15% discount to get back on the bandwagon, right? If you sign up for continuity or sign up for an ongoing thing. We take that same list, right? I plug it into a platform that we're going to work with that I can target people based on their address. So I've got plat level information of every US household in America, right? Using GPS data, we can target their devices. So I can hit them on CTV. We can hit them on on their devices. We can hit them via display ads where they're already surfing. Take that same list, put it into Facebook, right? You now have an audience that you can target in Facebook because Facebook still allows you to create audiences based on addresses, both email and physical. You can do that same thing using customer match within Google. So then you create a content, right, that has a singular message across all these touch points. You launch that, and then you start reaching those people and getting them back into your consumer fold. And if you want to roll a direct mail piece in there too, run that campaign for a week, targeting all the people that you're going to direct mail, right? Then send the direct mail, let it rest for a couple of weeks, and then relaunch that campaign as a retargeting campaign, and you'll drive sales. And that's how this stuff all fits together into one unified message. It's just one of a million examples that you can use.
The way you describe it, it sounds difficult. but it probably isn't that difficult, right? I mean, these are
It's gotten
tools that
easier.
you can use
It's
them.
gotten easier, I think, in some
it
ways,
has
because
gotten
things are pulled together now.
Right.
But this is, to me, again, this is where, having the right marketing partners, come into play, whether that's having the right people on your team in-house, supplementing with, companies like Bluewater, that they're an agency that can help guide. Like, we work with in-house teams all the time where it's like, all right, we'll take this, you guys deal with this, and we'll put it all together. There's not one size fits all. Again, it just comes back down to doing it.
It's funny. So before we go to Tom, we're going to wrap up. I never brought up abandoned cart emails. So one of the things on Buyist that we do is we'll have a campaign that's running, and they never set up abandoned cart emails, so they'll ask us to set it up. And when we set it up, it doesn't just go live that day. We'll take anybody who abandoned in the months previous, right? The data's there. Just why not? Hey, you abandon your cart. I'm sure it breaks every rule in terms of metrics. Oh no, you have to send it within 60 minutes.
You guys make that
when
so
we
easy.
send it, the take rate on that, even months later, and it's not even, here's a discount. It's, hey, you left something in your cart, please come back. And it's just literally thousands of dollars in sales will come in. It's crazy.
You guys make that so easy on your
But
platform.
it's crazy how effective it is, so it's cool.
Yeah.
Tom, I think we're good.
And we use the mic because these videos will eventually end up on our YouTube channel. So anyone with a question for the group?
Media cost per order. We love the fact that as you have lifetime value factored in and other channels, I'm just wondering if there's a sort of a ratio that you use of your existing media cost per order, but then you factor it up because you've got lifetime value. Could you talk to that a little bit?
How do you guys handle it?
I didn't catch the whole question. Sorry.
Okay, you start
Clear and slow.
Okay. You start a campaign, you spend some media dollars, you have revenue generated, and you have your ratio of media cost per order. But you have lifetime value coming, whether or not it's subscription or continuity or multiple purchases. I'm wondering how much you factor up in your media allowable for that downstream revenue.
I think for us, we look at it because, again, we're a younger brand. We invest into this. I mean, we know we need to invest to get that customer, that first acquisition of the customer, because they just don't know about us. It's funny, some of the things you were talking about earlier, when we were doing some advertising, and now I think all of us got used to during the pandemic, QR codes. Before the pandemic, nobody liked those things. Now I'm like, it's such a norm thing. So now we look at how can we, if we get some advertising out there, or even in the Ipsy box, I wanted a welcome back offer, maybe to our website, but also I could have it go back to Ulta. I get a code from Ulta saying, here, welcome back. So we try all these different things. And yes, we heavily invest in that first time acquisition. So, normally people say, oh, you want to do 10%. Well, we might do 20 or 30% to get that first, because we know we make a product that's, quote, sort of sticky, that people get addicted to. So again, I think it's not one size fits all. It depends on your type of product. If you're a one-off sale versus a product that people would, want to come back to, I think sometimes you take a different strategy. It's not a set number, if you're asking for a specific number.
No, I know, but let's say you're in a conversation with Bluewater, just ran some media. It's maybe not meeting your goal, but there's opportunity for downstream revenue. I'm just wondering, in your conversations with Bluewater, how much you might adjust their allowable for that downstream revenue. So I don't know if you want to comment, but.
Well, I think you just test. We test and try things all the time.
From an agency side, we always recommend some kind of financial modeling, right? Because, for example, if you're looking at a waterfall, right, or if you're looking at a long-term cash burn, and that's part of the importance of media testing, right? So the media test obviously should drive sales, right? That's what we want to do. But the truth is, media testing is also about gathering data, right? Data that you can project from and that you can make sound financial decisions from. Correct. So our recommendation as an agency is going to be to work with a brand, to help them take that information, plug it into a waterfall or plug it into a time roll so we can see, okay, This is what our cash burn is monthly. Like, when do we actually break even? And then the decision comes back down to the brand, how much they can afford to take risk. And if they can afford to take that risk, then we'll pump 30% back into or 40% back in, as long as they can sustain that kind of a cash burn.
If it scales, you keep supporting, you keep feeding the beast, so to speak. If it's not scaling, you shut it down.
And then you
something
check
else.
in on it constantly.
Exactly.
To make sure that
Daily.
you're not getting over your ski tips.
Exactly. Because you also have to produce products and timelines and all these other things, and the logistics of getting things in time to, there's a lot of moving parts depending, again, on the products you make. But yeah, you have to balance all these things.
Yeah, I say check on it daily or regularly, because I
Daily.
find that sometimes people are like, oh, we did that, and then they just let it roll, and then like 3 months later they go back and go, this was a miserable financial failure. So it's a bad choice.
With such tight data, you can daily, weekly make decisions, and then over longer periods of time you review things. But no, it's super fast decision making now.
We got time for one more. All
They've
right.
said we've heard enough.
We've heard enough.
Well, thank you to this group. How about a round of applause?
Thank you.